What's up, everybody? This is Luke coming at you with Karlov of the Ghost Council. This is an EDH deck tech with a pretty badass and kind of sneaky cool commander. He is Orzhov 2/2, and whenever you gain life, you put 2+1/+1 counters on him, and you can pay an Orzhov, remove 6 counters from him, and you can exile target creature. He is a bad man. And this is kind of like a black and white aristocrat sort of list. You drain your opponents, and you can also one-shot them with a couple of awesome combos that I'll show you as well. And one of the cool things, like I've said previously, I really love commanders that are cheap to get out, because it doesn't matter how often they get removed. You can throw them into the yard, or you can throw them into the command zone, and then get them back out for cheap. So let's go over the mana base, shall we? Like I said, make it work. This mana base is, I kind of pirated this deck by breaking apart Athreos. I've got 6 plains, which should be more, I believe, and 17 swamps. Make it work for you. Throw it on tapped out, and you can see what your mana breakdown should be. Other cards that produce mana, other lands: Urborg, Tomb of Yawgmoth, make everything a mountain, or a swamp rather. Vault of the Archangel, you have Tainted Fields, Isolated Chapel, Orzhov Basilica, Scoured Barrens, Caves of Koilos, Flagstones. I don't know why this is such an expensive card. I think that's dumb, but whatever. If somebody can straighten me out and explain it to me, I'm all ears. Orzhov Guildgates, Reliquary Tower, Terramorphic Expanse, Evolving Wilds, and then 1 Soul Ring as the lone mana rock for right now. This is a pretty low to the ground list, so it's not super, the curve isn't too crazy. So those are the lands. Fix them up how you think they should be. Another sort of mana rock, I guess, is land tax, 1 white. At the beginning of your upkeep, if an opponent controls more lands than you, tutor 3 basics into your hand, and then reveal and shuffle. Simple. Authority of the Councils gains you life. Now remember, Trostani is about gaining gigantic chunks of life and using that life as a resource to bash your opponents in the face. This is about nickel and diming, small increments of life gain, because Karlov wants lots of individual instants of life gain so he can get those counters, and then you can remove those to exile a creature, or you can bash face with him in commander damage, which is, last night I did it. I hit somebody for 40 commander damage plus, and I was told I was mean. But that's the way the cookie crumbles. So Authority of the Councils, creatures your opponents control enter the field tapped, and whenever a creature ETBs on your opponent's control, you gain a life. Skull Clamp, 1 to equip, 1 to bring out. Equipped creature gets +1/-1, and whenever a equipped creature dies, draw 2 cards. There are a decent number of tokens in here. You can also run Teysa, the Teysa that works with, I think it's like Dread of Night or Eternal Darkness, something like that makes everything black, and then you can create a combo of infinite tokens that you can sacrifice for stuff. Otherwise, just use this, and you can just drain, you can kill your tokens and gain card advantage that way. Nile Spellbomb, you can tap it and sacrifice it. Exile, you can blow up somebody's graveyard. If you pay a black while you do it, you get to draw a card. So if anybody's playing Marin or, I don't know, Athreos or whatever, it helps you manage their graveyard. Blind Obedience is like Authority of the Councils, except better. 1 and a white with Extort, which means whenever you cast a spell, you can pay a white or a black, and each opponent loses 1 life, and you gain that much life. Now, artifacts and creatures with which your opponent control enter the battlefield tapped, and their flavor text is freaking awesome. By the time your needs have worn through your robe, you may have begun to learn your place. God, that's badass. Mean. Spirit Link. It's an aura for 1 white, and for each 1 damage enchanted creature deals, you gain 1 life. This is not lifelink. It is not redundant. It stacks on top of lifelink. So if you throw this on a lifelink creature, guess what? You're going to be gaining twice that much life. And it's 2 life gain instances, which is good for Karlov. Demonic Tutor, get something. Diabolic Tutor, get something. Phyrexian Arena, 1 and 2 black. At the beginning of your upkeep, you draw a card and lose a life. Better leverage that life for card advantage. That's kind of the idea behind the deck. Ashnod's Altar. 3 colorless. If you sack a creature, you add 2 colorless mana to your pool, and you can do this at any time. That's your priority, really. Staff of the Sung Magus. 3 drop artifact. Whenever you cast a white spell or a planes enters the battlefield under your control, you gain a life. Staff of the Death Magus. Does the exact same thing, except where it's swamps and black spells. So lots of little life triggers there. Will of Lost Dreams. Whenever you gain life, you can pay X mana, where X is equal to or less than the amount of life you gained, and you draw that many cards. Cost 4 to drop. Awesome, awesome card. Almert's Archive. If you gain life, gain twice that much life. If you would draw a card, except for the card that you draw during your normal draw step, you draw that one plus 1. Panharmonicon. ETBs trigger twice. So life gain triggers twice. And everything else triggers twice. Drain effects trigger twice. Field of Souls, 2 and 2 white. Enchantment. Whenever a non-token creature is put into your yard from the battlefield, you get a 1/1 white flying spirit token onto the field. Campaign of Vengeance. Might come out. I'm not 100% sold on it yet, but it's pretty good so far. 3 and an Orzhov. Whenever a creature you control attacks, defending player loses a life and you gain a life. And Greed. It's kind of like Erebos ability. If you pay 1 and 2 life, 1 black and 2 life, you can draw a card, and you can't mitigate that life loss. Now, let's go over the creatures, shall we? First, the broken one, Serra Ascendant. 1 whites for a 1/1 lifelink. If you have 30 or more life, Serra Ascendant gets +5/+5 and gets flying. It's hilarious. It's cheap. It's broken in EDH. My play group, before we were super spiky, we used to have a house rule where you had to actually gain up to 60 life to keep the symmetry of this with modern and standard when it was legal, but we don't do that anymore. Soul Sisters, whenever a creature ETBs, you gain a life. And that's, once again, all what the deck is about. Suture Priest is a little different. 1/1 for 1 and a white, and whenever any creature ETBs under your control, you gain a life. If it ETBs under an opponent's control, they lose a life. So you get these guys out and you start gaining life. Turn 1, Soul Sister, into turn 2, Karlov is one of the most powerful starts you can have. It's incredibly, incredibly powerful. This is a Japanese or Chinese card named Viscera Seer. Don't say Viscera Seer, it's just wrong. Pet peeve of mine is people mispronouncing stuff. But I digress. So, 1/1 for 1 black. If you sacrifice a creature, you can use his ability to scry 1. Simple. He's very popular in modern decks, aristocrat decks, and the old Malira combo deck that before Vizier of Remedies and Devoted Druid combo. They used to use this with Malira and Kitchen Finks and gain infinite life, and then throw in a Murderous Redcap and do the same thing. Zulaport Cutthroat and the Blood Artist. 1 and a black for each. Blood Artist is a 0/1 that whenever he or another creature dies, target player drains 1. So you gain 1, they lose 1. Zulaport Cutthroat is a 1/1, and whenever another creature dies or he dies, each opponent loses a life and you gain a life. So those are the boys. Viscopa Guildmage. 1 Orzhov for a 2/2 wizard. If you pay 1 in an Orzhov, target creature gains lifelink until the end of turn. And this is one of the combo synergies. 1 and an Orzhov, whenever you gain life this turn, each opponent loses that much life. You can go infinite with that, and I'll tell you how it's done in a minute. Cartel Aristocrat, which is the namesake card of Aristocrats. I have an old Aristocrat video on my channel. Check it out. It's a hell of a lot of fun. Instead, you can use Safi Ericstatter and Renegade Rallier for an infinite combo as well. 2/2 Human Advisor for an Orzhov. Sack a creature and Cartel Aristocrat gates protection from the color of your choice until end of turn. Good to have those sack outlets, especially with the spirits that you get. Ailey or Ailey is a 2/3 for one Orzhov rather. Death Touch, Core Cleric. 1 colorless, sacrifice a creature and you gain life equal to the sacrificed creature's toughness. If you pay 1 in an Orzhov and sacrifice another creature, you can exile a non-land permanent. Activate this only if you have 10 or more life, 10 more life than your starting life total at least. I've never gotten her out yet. I imagine she'd be incredibly powerful, which is why she's in the deck. This one's silly. Soltari Visionary, 1 and 2 white for a 2/2 shadow. And if he connects with an opponent with combat damage, you get to destroy an enchantment. I don't have Aura Shards in this deck, and I got to get rid of those enchantments. People play Pillow Fort decks, and you got to do something about it. Kambal, Council of Allocation. He's 1 in an Orzhov for a 2/3 legendary Human Advisor, and whenever an opponent casts a non-creature spell, you drain them for 2. Royal Assassin. 1 and 2 black for a 1/1. You tap him to destroy target tapped creature. I love him. He's great defense. Another really great card in here would be Painful Quandary, I believe it's called. 3 and 2 black for an enchantment. Whenever an opponent casts a spell, they either discard a card from their hand or they lose 5 life. That should definitely be in here. I also like Stonehewer Giant. He is a 4/4 for 3 and 2 whites. And when he ETBs, you tutor for an equipment card. And the equipment that you should be grabbing is Whisper Silk Cloak. So you can throw that onto Karlov. Nobody gets rid of him except for a board wipe. And you can swing in with impunity and bring all of the death upon your opponents. Windborn Muse, a 2/3 for 3 and a white flying. And it has Ghostly Prison. Everybody has to pay 2 for each creature attacking you. Defiant Bloodlord, 3 and a black for a 4/5 flying vampire. Whenever you gain life, target opponent loses that much life. That also synergizes with the combo that we are going to be running. 3 and a black for Cryptghast. It's got a hybrid black-white extort. It's a 2/2 Spirit. And whenever a swamp is tapped for mana on your side, you add an additional black mana to your pool. So once again, good mana efficiency. One of the top 3 resources, life, cards, and mana. Erebos, God of the Dead, 5/7 legendary enchantment creature god for 3 and a black. Indestructible. He doesn't become a creature until you have 5 devotion to black. Your opponents can't gain life, and if you pay 1 and black and 2 life, you can draw a card. I use this quite often because that's one of the ways you turn life into another resource, which is card advantage. Archfiend of Depravity, 3 and 2 black, 5/4 flying. At the beginning of each opponent's end step, they choose their favorite 2 creatures and sack the rest. It's not really a great synergizer with the deck, but it's too good not to have. Just straight up. Gary, Grey Merchant of Asphodel. One of the reasons I wanted to actually brew this deck up or put this deck together. He's a 2/4 for 3 and 2 black. He's a zombie, and when he ETBs, each opponent loses X life, where X is your devotion to black, and then you gain that much life. He's badass. So if you can find a way to get him into the yard and back onto the field, which I have a way, you can just drain people out. A buddy of mine does that with Marin of Clan Meltoth, and it's a bad feeling. It was a badass thing. All right, we've got Cliffhaven Vampire, which could easily become something else. It's not fantastic, but he does what you kind of want. He synergizes. 2 and an Orzhov for a 2/4 flying Vampire Warrior ally. And whenever you gain life, each opponent loses 1 life. Simple. Now, it's not losing that much life as you gained, but they do lose some life. And once again, we're all about the incremental life loss of your opponents and incremental life gain of yourself. Endrick Sar, Master Breeder, 4 and a black for a 2/2. And when you play a creature spell, you get X 1/1 black thrall creature tokens onto the field, where X is that spell's CMC. And when you have 7 or more thralls, sack Endrick Sar. So it's good to have him, but you also want to sack outlets so you can leverage those thralls and keep him alive, if possible. Sunscorched Regent, 3 and 2 white, 4/3 dragon, flying, and when an opponent casts a spell, put a 1/1 counter on Sunscorched Regent and gain a life. My roommates and I were doing Two-Headed Giant, and I was playing Trostani. I had this guy out, and he was playing this deck, and I won't say we murdered. I mean, we definitely beat the crap out of our opponents, but they came very, very close. One of them was running Xenagod, and just bringing out all these gigantic, freaking ridiculous, stupid creatures. He was going to Ulamog the next turn, and then give him +10/+10, and mill us for exile for 20. So I didn't feel bad when we killed him with the Death Star. What's the Death Star, Luke? I'll tell you in a minute. All right, Sidisi Undead Vizier, 5 total mana cost, 3 and 2 black for a 4/6 Naga zombie, legendary, and it's got Death Touch and Exploit. When you exploit a creature, including yourself, you get to tutor for any card that you want into your hand. Divinity of Pride, 5 hybrid black-whites mana for a 4/4 flying lifelinker, and if you have 25 life or more, it gets +1/+1. It's a big old lifelinking beater with evasion. New card from Ixalan, Vuna, or Vona, Butcher of Magan. 3 and an Orzhov for a 4/4 Vigilance lifelink. If you tap and pay 7 life, you get to destroy target non-land permanent, and you can only activate this during your turn. So, synergizes with the deck. You know what else does? Orzhov of the Ghost Council, or Obsidian Ghost Council, excuse me. 1 and double Orzhov for Spirit Advisor, 5/5. And when they ETB, target opponent loses 2 and you gain 2. And at the beginning of your end step, you can exile him. And if you do, you may bring him back during your next upkeep and they get haste. Now, this is the deal. Important to remember this trigger, because if you exile and you forget your May ability to bring him back, he stays exiled forever. You have to either process him back or, I don't know, wish for him. So put a die on top of your library, put him on top of your library, whatever. Just make sure that you pay attention to that. Otherwise, you're going to lose your Ghost Council. Speaking of ghosts, you've got Teysa, Envoy of Ghosts. 5 and an Orzhov for a 4/4 legendary human advisor. She's got vigilance and protection from creatures. Whenever a creature deals combat damage to you, you can destroy that creature and put a 1/1 white and black spirit token onto the field, and it's got flying. She's badass. She'd make a good alternate commander to Athreos. Treasury Thrall, 4 and an Orzhov for a 4/4 with Extort. And whenever it attacks, you can return an artifact, creature, or enchantment from your graveyard to hand. Archangel of Thune. This bitch gets the job done. Pardon my French. 3 and 2 white for a 3/4 flying lifelink. And whenever you gain life, throw a 1/1 counter on each creature you control. So if you have a Soul Sister and you bring our Archangel of Thune, then everybody's getting counters, including the homeboy. Very powerful card. Now, this is Pontiff of Blight. 4 and 2 black for an Extort, 2/7 zombie cleric. Other creatures you control have Extort. So if you've got 5 creatures and you play a spell and you have 5 extra mana, you can Extort 5 times. That counts as 5 instances of life gain. So that actually throws 5 times 2 is 10 counters onto Karlov. So that can be very powerful. Shieldred, she's too good not to play. 6/6 Swamp Walk Praetor, and she costs 5 and 2 black to get out. At the beginning of your upkeep, you return a creature card from your yard to the field, and at the beginning of each opponent's upkeep, they do the opposite. They sack a creature. 2 Planeswalkers in this list. Obnixilis Reignited, 5 loyalty Planeswalker for 3 and 2 black. +1, you draw a card and lose a life. -3, destroy target creature. -8, you can give an opponent an emblem, which says whenever a player draws a card, including them, they lose 2 life. Pretty good. And then the last Planeswalker is Sorin Grim Nemesis. 4 and an Orzhov for a 6 loyalty Planeswalker. If you plus him, you reveal a card from the top of your library and put it into your hand. Each opponent loses life equal to the CMC of that card. You can -X, and Sorin deals X damage to target creature or Planeswalker, and you gain X life. You can -9, and you pick the person with the highest life total, and you get that many 1/1 black vampire knight creatures with lifelink onto the field. So he'll probably settle the argument as well. Now, there are a couple of spells here. Some of them are removal. This one is a response to mass board wipes. Eerie Interlude. 2 and a white for an instant. Flicker any creature you want. As many as you want. So if somebody plays an overloaded Cyclonic Rift, then guess what? You get to flicker in response, and all your guys come right back. That is the reason that's in here. I'm tired of getting mercilessly evicted and damnationed and Cyclonic Rifted. So this is my one answer to that. Next, Stasis Snare. It is a flash O-ring for a creature. Simple. Anguish in Making. Exile a creature, lose 3 life, and pay 1 in an Orzhov. Mortify. Destroy a creature and enchantments for 1 in an Orzhov. Instant. Utter End. 2 in an Orzhov. Exile target non-land permanents. And then you have Wrath of God. Destroy all creatures that can't be regenerated. That, ladies and gentlemen, is almost everything except for the combo, which is Explicit Blood and Sanguine Bond. Explicit Blood costs 4 and a black. It says whenever an opponent loses life, you gain that much life. Sanguine Bond says it's got a casting cost of 3 and 2 black. Whenever you gain life, target opponent loses that much life. So these guys synergize with each other. They create an infinite loop, and you can drain everybody of life and kill them that way. It also works with the Viscopa Blood Mage and the Bloodthrone Vampire, I believe it is. So it's a very common, combo, but very powerful. Death Star, Aetherflux Reservoir. Whenever you cast a spell, you gain 1 life for each spell you've cast that turn. If you pay 50 life, you can dome somebody for 50, and we do it a lot. It costs 4. And then we've got a couple pieces of equipment. You've got Sword of Light and Shadow, 3 and 2 to equip. It gets your equipped creature gets +2/+2 and gets protection from white and black. Whenever a creature deals combat damage to a player, or this equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, you get 3 life, and you can bring something back, a creature card from your graveyard to your hand. Sword of War and Peace, 3 to cast, 2 to equip. Your equipped creature gets +2/+2 and pro red and green. Whenever it connects with a player, it deals damage to that player equal to the number of cards in their hand, and you gain life equal to the number of cards in your hand. And then Whisper Silk Cloak, very important. You throw it on Karlov, and he gets Shroud and cannot be blocked. And then he just gets all those counters, and he's swinging for commander damage, and that settles the argument as well. That, ladies and gentlemen, is Karlov of the Ghost Council. Let me know how you like this deck. If you've got any suggestions, any questions, anything like that. There will be a deck list in the description. And feel free and like, comment, subscribe. And I hope to hear from you soon. And I will talk to you soon. Cheers, everybody.